She fixed a billionaire suit in a blackout, refused his cash, and by sunrise, a team of flyers were asking her about last night. What they offered next revived her whole life. Ivy Thompson knew every inch of her tiny shop by feel. The bell above the door was brittle, the sewing machine had a squeak like an old neighbor, and the single bulb in the window had been out for 3 months. Her daughter, Maya, slept with the radio on so the apartment above wouldn't hear every cough. Rent was late, the electric bill was past due. Ivy couldn't count the coins in her jar and still missed the mark. That night, the storm came in like it had been rehearsing for weeks. The city went dark. Ivy was hunched over a hem, fingers nimble from years of practice, when the bell clattered and a man pushed in, drenched, cuff ripped down to the lining. He looked like someone who owned cities and used clouds as umbrellas. His name, when he finally said it, was Damien Carrington. But he didn't say the name like people do when they're proud. He said it like a man trying to be ordinary and failing. Can you fix this? It's for morning, he said, voice low. The suit was ruined where a bar had split the seam. He slid a thick envelope across the counter. 2,000 in cash. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't desperate. Ivy held the envelope. She saw Maya's school uniform tucked inside a grocery bag in the corner. She thought of the overdue notices that waited like quiet predators on her kitchen table. She thought about her mother, who taught her the rule that kept her awake some nights: help first, price later. Ivy had a business to run, but she had principles. She refused to trade for the highest bidder. Keep it, she said, and put the envelope back. Not from me, not from someone who's desperate. Damien's expression flickered, offended, confused, and then something softer. You don't take money? I take respect. Ivy smiled because she didn't have a better phrase. If you were asking me to stitch a person back into their life, that's not something I can put a price on. He argued. He offered more. She refused. He left with the suit wrapped in a towel and a look that said he had never met anyone quite like her. She worked by the glow of her phone and a candle, fingers moving as if she were channeling every tailor who had ever taught her a stitch. By 3 a.m., the suit was whole. She pressed it with the iron that used to belong to her grandmother and set it on the counter like it was a small repair work. At dawn, the shop bell chimed and she assumed it was Mr. Delgado, her regular, who always asked about discounts. Instead, a corridor of suits filled the doorway, crisp, quiet men and women carrying leather folders. Their shoes were quite on her cracked tile. They called themselves lawyers, which in the New York meant they could open bank vaults with a whisper. They wanted to know about last night. We represent Mr. Daniel Carrington, one said. He requested that we locate the person who assigned him at approximately 2 a.m. Are you that person? Ivy folded her hands and felt Maya breathing in the apartment above. She answered plainly, yes. They sat down. The conversation that followed felt like a slow pivot in a company meeting. The lead lawyer explained, corporate voice soft and precise, that Mr. Carrington had been in a crucible merger that could either save or shutter 3,000 jobs hinged on one meeting. He had been distracted, burned out, lost sight of why the work mattered. The night's event, the kindness he had received in a storm from someone who refused money, had shaken him awake. He told us, the lawyer said, that your act reminded him to put people before profit. When they mentioned the company name Carrington Industries, Ivy pictured headlines she had never expected to read. Damien stepped into the doorway then, not the storm-blasted man from the night before, but composed in a way that didn't feel like showmanship. He walked over, And when he spoke to Ivy, there was no legalese, only gratitude. You refused my money, he said. You did something I can't buy. You reminded me of decency. What he offered next was so unorthodox it could have been a marketing campaign pitched by an intern. A position director of tailoring services for Carrington Industries. A salary that would make overdue bills a memory, equity, funding for a community training program for seamstresses and tailors, and for Maya a full scholarship to any university she chose. Ivy's first reaction was a tight laugh. It sounded like the kind of joke someone tells to stop themselves from crying. Why me? She asked. Because you fixed more than a suit, Damien said. You fixed the part of me that thought everything had a price. She asked for time and then, without much fanfare, said yes. Not because she loved boardrooms or because she dreamed of titles, but because the offer would let her hold on to what mattered and scale it. She could keep her mother's rule alive, but teach it to others. She could create apprenticeship programs, hire local kids, preserve the small acts that stitched the communities together. The transition was an instant glam. Her little shop became the nucleus of something larger, a state of the art tailoring center where machines hummed, apprentices learned pattern making, and Maya traded stories with college counselors. Ivy kept her old sewing table in a corner, polished and stubborn. The legal folders were replaced with invoices that balanced, and sometimes with letters from former employees of Carrington Industries thanking her for helping keep their families afloat. When people asked what changed everything, Ivy gave the same answer her mother taught her. I sewed what I could, and I trusted that good will find a way. The world, the word she learned, could be surprisingly literal about returns on investment. Invest in people and the dividends come back in dignity. Years later, graduates of her program ran small shops across the city. The tailoring center bore Ivy's name above the door, not because she wanted a plaque, but because names in her life had been currencies of love. Maya stood at graduation in a suit her mother had pressed the night before, and Ivy watched the cap fly, feeling the thread of her story tighten into something strong. One evening, a young man came into the old shop and asked if she remembered the night of the storm. Ivy smiled and nodded. He wanted to pay her for what she had done. She shook her head the same way she had years earlier and said, keep your money, mend someone else. If you enjoyed our story, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell for more like these.